Welcome to this week's Shotmaker episode. We're very excited. I'm very excited. It's Ryder Cup week, which is a huge deal to those golf fans. But also, kind of a unique opportunity this year to look at some of the dynamics of the Ryder Cup and what we can learn from it. So for those of you who don't know, I'll educate you guys a little bit on what's happening in the Ryder Cup. So for years, Ryder Cup, Europeans have always found a way to beat the Americans or outperform the Americans. It's the only real team event in golf that, everyone loves. And for some reason, playing as a team, they were able to, even though individually on paper, the Americans were always by far the best, they would win. Not every time, but a lot of the times. And surprisingly so. And would pull off these great shots and would have all this lure of this amazing Ryder Cup team. So fast forward to this year, lots happened in golf. A lot of the top players from both sides took the live deal, which meant that they were now ineligible from playing in the Ryder Cup. But especially for the European side and for those of you like me that have, for a generation watched this team just crush the Tiger Woodses and the Phil Mickelsons and the best players in the world. They just found a way to just defeat in a really bad way, which gave them this, this history there and this, tradition. Well, that entire team is gone. And so us as golf fans, I don't know how you guys feel, but for me, it's crazy to turn on the TV and look at the European team, and you're not just missing one player, especially Sergio Garcia, who was my favorite, but you're really missing 5 or 6 players that are all gone, future captains, future leaders. And what makes it such a unique perspective from a sports area, as you guys will be able to relate to, is the fact that it's not just that those players are gone, they're playing in Europe. So they are playing on their home field without their team, without their leaders, right? There's a couple of them left, Rory, John Rahm, but you're really missing 5 or 6 of your key players that would have, whether they were there as captains, assistant captains, they would have been there to make sure that Europe wins on the home soil. They've never lost on the home soil outside of 1993. Wow. So what they're suddenly faced with, which is where this becomes a good sports and leadership conversation, is it's not just that you're missing your best players. You now are expected to win, because if you lose, you're losing for the first time since 1993. And you're playing with a bunch of players who have never been leaders on a team, who even the ones that are left were always the young guys, right, and these leaders were leading them on. So it's really an interesting dynamic if you take it back to a business side, or say life doesn't stop, right? Like they have to go out and perform this week, because if they don't perform this week, then it's going to be huge questions on the organization as a whole. Should they have let the players come back? Should they have let Sergio pay his fine and just show up as the captain, right? So now all of a sudden your entire organization will be in question if you lose. And going back to what I just said, on paper, they should always lose, right? Like, the Americans are the better players. They just always found a way to win. So they're really up against some huge headwinds as we go into this week's Ryder Cup. But taking, a step backward, making it more of a universal conversation is, this really is a great question for whether it's a sports team or a business team of what happens when you make a rule and your best players don't follow it, right? Like that's kind of where the European squad was. We made a rule, whether it's you have to show up at 7 a.m., you have to work, Thanksgiving, whatever that question was, that those best players decided, screw it, I'm not going to do it, right? And so now as an organization, you really have a lose-lose, because if you would have said, oh, it's okay, you were going to show up at Thanksgiving, you can still come back, or you stick with your rule at the expense of your performance.
Yeah, that's a tough question, right? I mean, I was always in the belief, you put the rule out there, you can live by it. The rule's there for a reason. Like you said, you didn't show up to work on Thanksgiving, but I'm going to let you come work, on Black Friday, because we're really busy, you're going to make a lot of money.
Because you're our best server.
Right, you're your best server. But I'm in the belief, this is me, and I'm probably in the minority on this, the best server would have to find a new job.
Yeah.
Because then I just invite everyone else to do this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's those tough decisions, unfortunately, that have to be made. We've all been through that, where, like you said, it was drawing a line. And again, I'm not going to be harder on them because of our best line cook or best server, but they need to be held to the same, rules as everybody else. Just like I think as you see like the good programs maybe in college sports, NFL, they're holding their quarterback to the same standard as their person on the bench. You know what I mean? I think the ones that aren't doing that are the ones that you see the organizational breakdowns at some point, right? Maybe it's not instant. Maybe they win the game because they let their quarterback play. But in the long term, those are the ones that seem to have more of the dysfunctions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other element of this is whether it is your organization or in sports. I mean, if you look at this team as a bubble, like they have to not only find a way to win, they have to also make sure they're training their next generation that now has to step up, that maybe would have had 2-4 years to build. It's now, making sure that behind the scenes you have that funnel that's like, if my GM burns out, doesn't show up, does something bad, what is my funnel, right? I can't just rely on my generational players or my,
it comes down to training.
Yeah.
And we talk about this all the time with restaurants. It's like we look at a sports team. Okay, yeah, you are a foundation. You are our best line cook, our best server, great GM. But in my mind, I always got somebody to replace you.
Yeah.
In sports, somebody gets injured. You need that guy to step in, right? So he's practicing every day. He's getting ready. He's being trained. Same thing in a restaurant. You do the same thing. You train and make sure they're ready. This way, when it's time to step up and step in, they're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. We always really want to have a talent bench, right? Who's that next person up? Again, that's the ideal world. Doesn't always, we talked earlier with sports teams, you like the good, we're Eagles fans, so we're looking at the future. Yeah. And, when things are going well, right, you have some great players on your team right now, like a Fletcher Cox and a Brandon Graham who won a Super Bowl for you, but you're still looking a couple years down the line. Yeah. All right, and they draft in the first round guys that can kind of step into those roles.
Well, they let a couple older players walk away at the end of the season for these two young guys to step in. Why did they want them to step in? Because they make less.
Yeah.
So it's helping you with their own rookie contracts still, so that they're able to spend the money, and as they grow and step into other positions and make more money, you need somebody behind them now.
Yeah.
And that's the goal. Just like Russia, it's no different.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think that's the other piece is I think so many times we think these, labor changes, this team development has to happen in this big thing. And really you see the most successful teams, it's happening while they're performing. So whether it's the game or just, every Friday, Saturday night, that you're still churning along, nobody knows that's what's happening, and yet you're finding a way to train and build and develop internally so that there isn't a gap, if something like this happened.
It's definitely the best scenario, right? The best scenario is you have your top line cook and the person below them is learning from them. Mm-hmm. They get their chance on a Saturday night when that other line cook needs off, right? And then next Saturday everyone's back, right? That's the best scenario is that it's a continuous learning curve.
Yeah.
But what happens when that line cook that your top one walks out and never comes back again, right? That's the
that's
then
the
your
dream.
Team Europe.
Then your Team Europe. Then you're into go back to sports. You're the Sixers, the process.
Well, we don't even know what Team Europe did yet. We still got to wait and see. Team Europe might be okay. We'll see, right? But you cringe a little bit. You get a little worried. But if you did everything you're supposed to do and you trained them, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And you have to have that confidence and that belief in them. Just like a coach would, you're putting in a rookie quarterback because your veteran just got hurt. You're not going to sit there and tell him, oh my God, you're going to get killed out there. Talk him up. You give him confidence. Get in the game, kid. Here you go. I've been waiting for this moment for you.
Right. Right. And that's, I think, the other piece of it is making sure whoever it is who's stepping in, that they know that, you're not expecting the same from that person they're replacing right away. Right. I think that's the other thing, Team Europe's talked a lot about this week has been, this is part of the process. This is our next generation. We're excited to see where the team evolves, but kind of saying, it might not happen this week, right? It might be a year from now, 2 years from now when we are able to move forward. And same in the restaurant, right? You may have a bad Black Friday if this happened on Thanksgiving. But that's okay, right? Your business will survive. Your restaurant will survive.
Building for the future.
Yeah.
You got to build for the future. If you're not building for a future, you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think it's something to think about as we go, especially into the holiday season, because I feel like probably every business owner will have this happen, right? Over the course, you're going to set the rule. It's going to get broken. But, I think believing that, like you said, that's the only way to have a successful organization, that you have to stick by your rules regardless of what happens.
You know, even though it's tough and you're going to let one of your best employees walk away, but they broke the rules.
Yeah.
You break the rules no matter who you are.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be held to that standard. Everybody will be held to the same standard. And it will make you stronger in the long run. You might have a couple bumps in the road early on, but in the long run, it will make you stronger.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think as we, again, look to the fourth quarter, we look to next year, looking at our team. I mean, I think that's what you guys do really well is, breaking down that labor team that you have, looking to tomorrow, being like the sports teams where it's like, what does 2024 look like? What's your roster in 24 rather than just here's what I'm dealing with today and I can't find labor. That might be true, but we still want to be building that roster for 24.
Oh, absolutely. That's, you can't build, you already built for now.
Yeah.
Right? You can make your little adjustments and everything, right? To the game plan, but come 24 is where you want the whole new plan.
Yeah.
We're building for this. This is what it's going to be. And, work towards it now. You're 3 months away.
Yeah.
And I think deciding if you want to continue on making tweaks and changing things around or going and saying, you know what, it's not working. We're going to completely, we're going to get through the holidays and then we're going to shift it around.
Right.
If you're, you can run a corporate restaurants like I do, sometimes we're just blowing up that management team.
Yeah.
We're not firing everybody. We have other restaurants to put them in, but we're moving everybody around. It's not working there. If you have one restaurant, make the decisions a little bit different, but maybe it is not a one manager change or a one stemmer change. It's a complete overhaul of this just isn't working. How you as the owner vision your restaurant, whether it's a culture, operational.
It could also be, right? You might realize I have too many managers.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of times NFL teams realize I don't want to go with a 4 linebacker package. I'm going to go with a 3 linebacker package. You might say I don't need 3 managers. I want to go to 2 managers and save that salary because we're just throwing. So now we're making our adjustments. We're getting ready. We're building for the new year.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where, if you're listening to this going, that's exactly what I'm feeling. You're not alone. I mean, most of the conversations we've had with people this year have said this just isn't working. Like whether it's dollars or people that we had to put in positions just to get through 21 and 22, now we get to 23 and it's like, this really isn't, the expectations aren't aligned, your definition of a GM versus their definition, like it just... It does not work, and that's okay because it was a crazy time, right? You were just trying to fill positions to get through the day, but that's gone, right? Like now is the time we have to really look at this because I promise you're spending more in labor than you've ever spent. Yeah. And are you getting that return for the dollars that you're spending? And, it's not to be unfair to employees or, hold up to too high of a standard, but we really do want to look at it as a roster and say, here's the dollars I have to spend. And it probably is at least revisiting your expectations for each manager and building in a creative way those positions that make sense with what your business looks like today, because your business today is probably different from your business 5 years ago. And so we really want to make sure that especially those managers, those positions work for the expectations of 23 and 24.
Yeah, like you said, as you put people in positions, you were maybe hoping they would grow into that position, right? You either internal promoted.
I didn't care because you were like one applicant on Indeed.
So then you're
like, guess what? You're hired.
You're hired. And
you're the manager.
Backup quarterback, right? Backup quarterback comes in. You think, man, I can really mold this backup quarterback, but you get to a point where it's like, I need to draft a quarterback.
Yeah, right.
It's not working.
It's not working. We tried it, and that might be where you are with some of your managers.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that server was going to make a good manager. I stuck with him for 12 months, 18 months, maybe it's 2 years now.
Yeah.
And they're just not getting what you needed out of that position, what you're paying for that position. Yeah. And those are the decisions as you go into 24 to really say,
take a good look at. Right? Make them hard decisions. No decision's easy when it comes to people. Yeah. Right, especially somebody that's been with you. If you thought enough of them to try them at manager and it didn't work, it's a tough decision. It's a tough conversation, but ones that need to be had. And still a spot on the team, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Maybe now you're just lead server.
Maybe they like being the best server.
Right.
Over the worst manager, right? Sometimes
I'd rather be the best server than the worst manager, right? So, it's not all over, but some shifting needs to be done.
Yeah, and I think just, not being afraid to take a look at it. Again, it doesn't have to be something that's, 6 months in a bubble and nothing else happens. Like, there really can be things that we're working towards as our business is continuing to perform well. But, I would encourage you, send us an email, schedule a time to talk to Chris or Scott. I mean, they have so much knowledge in this area. And now really is the time, because 24 is going to be here before we know it. And it doesn't mean we have to go in and fire everyone today, but we want to know, like, what are the changes I want to make 3 months from now, so I can kind of lead to those changes rather than being reactive.
Build out a plan.
Yes. So, all right. Well, thank you for listening to this week's episode. Hopefully everyone watches the Ryder Cup this weekend. And we'll see you next week.